Well, thank you very much, Chairman Duncan. Thank you for calling the hearing. Mr. Series, thank you very much for your courtesy. And I listened as I came in some of your observations, Mr. Chairman, about the trip we took together to Colombia and Peru several months ago. And these trips are always eye-opening. In my previous life, I served as chairman of this subcommittee, and I think of all the work I've done, this is most gratifying. There's so much that needs to be done, so much where our presence is necessary, and so much when it comes to Colombia, progress that has been made. And I've been to Colombia many, 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 many times, and each time I go, I always feel exhilarating feeling, because when you look at Colombia on the verge of really becoming a failed state not that long ago, the United States has had no better partner and ally in South America than Colombia. And in the 1990s, they teetered on the edge of being a failed state, and over the last decade, the progress made in Colombia has just been unbelievable. A couple of statistics. Between 2002 and 2014, Colombia saw a 90% decrease in kidnappings and a 54% reduction in homicides. And it was partnership here in Washington that helped with that process. When the Clinton administration and the Republican-controlled Congress got behind Plan Colombia in the late 1990s, there were clear goals: weaken the FARC to the point that they would sit down at the negotiating table and close the chapter on the longest ongoing armed conflict in the Western Hemisphere. That's precisely what's happening now, and I want to thank Special Envoy Aronson for supporting the Colombian government during these ongoing negotiations. Very, very important, and I commend all your good work. And Mr. Secretary as well, we appreciate all people that just do so much. The Western Hemisphere is our hemisphere, and I've long thought that we don't give it the attention it deserves, mainly because we always seem to have pressing problems elsewhere in the world. But we should really remember that things that happen here have a direct effect on us in the same hemisphere. So our work is obviously not over, and now more than ever, the United States must continue to stand with Colombia. We have supported the Colombian government through years of war, and I believe we must support the country in peace just as in war. And if a peace agreement is reached, we in Congress need to do our part to provide Colombia with the assistance it needs. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to join you today. And let me ask the witnesses, both of them, what role do you envision for the United Nations, the OAS, and other international bodies if a peace agreement is reached with the FARC? Do you think that UN peacekeepers will be needed in Colombia? And I personally strongly support new assistance for Colombia to implement a peace agreement with the FARC. And at the same time, though, Colombia no longer needs the U.S. to provide funding in the same way it once did. So if a peace deal is reached with the FARC, how do you envision foreign assistance to Colombia over the next 5 to 10 years?
Mr. Engel, thank you for those very helpful remarks and your personal remarks toward me. And I just want to underscore what you said. You know, Latin America usually suffers because we don't pay enough attention. But when we pay attention in a bipartisan way, you know, we can have great success. We did so in Central America when we negotiated a bipartisan accord on Central America in 1989 and defeated the Sandinistas with Violeta Chamorro's democratic government and ended the war in El Salvador. Plan Colombia, as you say, is another great example of that. The parties have discussed possible roles for outside monitors and verifiers in a disarmament demobilization regime. They haven't agreed on exactly what role for what agency, but they've been talking to both the OAS and the UN and UNASUR. And I think that it's not unlikely that there'll be some kind of verification monitoring role for one or several of those institutions. But again, the parties haven't reached agreement on that. As for the funding levels, I'll let Deputy Assistant Secretary Lee discuss that. I think he's the best source.
Thank you very much, Congressman Engel. Right now, we're essentially in a wait-and-see mode on how the peace process unfolds. That said, many of the things that we have been doing, particularly in recent years, and the programs that we have been championing to Congress and receive support from Congress and working with our Colombian partners, actually will form a good basis for in any peace agreement, because many of the things that we're doing include strengthening law enforcement, strengthening rule of law, working for building capacity of NGOs to monitor human rights, a whole variety of humanitarian programs that support the victims' law, which provides a whole variety of assistance to many of those who have been direct victims of the conflict. There's approximately 7 million individuals. Most of those have been internally displaced. And so we provide prevention support. We provide comprehensive assistance and job retraining, medical attention. Those kinds of programs, obviously, I think will continue. We also have programs that have been very targeted to Afro-Colombians and indigenous groups, and since about 2011 to this year, we have channeled about $61 million for programs that help these groups that have been disproportionately hit hard by the conflict to get employment, to get land titles, to seek legal redress. So these kinds of programs, I think, are already in place. We will probably continue, expand or contract depending on what our Colombian partners come to us and say after they have negotiated a peace agreement. But we have, I think, a basis on which to build, a good foundation on which to build that could support a peace process.
Well, thank you very much again, both of you, for your good work. Chairman Duncan, Ranking Member Sirius, thank you for your courtesy.
Thank you, Ranking Member.